Hey everyone, this is HFY Galactic Empire Fall. Human-made stories, no AI noise. Because HFY needs humanity. Subscribe, and let's begin. I'm She-Candy. Lena saw it from the corner of her eye while she was setting the transcription slate beside the terminal. A thin white bar should have crossed the lower edge of the screen and vanished. Instead it stopped halfway, as if reconsidering, then continued a second later with the same steady pace. She did not touch the keys. She set the slate down flat, aligned its corner with the seam in the desk, and watched the blank input field wait for her. Across from her, Ilian was under the side console with the driver between two fingers. He had pulled off the lower panel and leaned forward until one shoulder disappeared into the machine. A line of screws sat in a neat row beside his left hand. Same spacing, same angle. He paused with the driver lifted, looked toward the frozen screen line without lifting his head, then turned one fastener a quarter step and withdrew. Power fluctuation, Lena asked. Ilian placed the driver on the desk, parallel to the slate. No, that was all. He stood, brushed metal dust from his palm onto a cloth, and checked the station clock mounted above the diagnostics rack. The clock had been running 32 milliseconds slow all week. He had corrected it 3 times. It kept returning to the same error. Lena slid into her chair. The seat rolled back a centimeter farther than she expected, stopping at the restraint bar behind her. She pulled herself in again. On the screen, the file header remained unchanged. Contact lexicon. Human language sample 14A. Authority lock active. Translation status prohibited. Under it was the notation that had turned a quiet research annex into the center of 4 committees and 6 sealed briefings. Do not translate. Exposure risk unresolved. The station had received stranger instructions before. Usually they came from military channels, trying to sound scientific. This one had come from a civilian archive ship salvaged near the Kuiper Gate ruins, and it had been copied into every major diplomatic network within 6 hours. No author. No explanation. Only the recording, the warning, and 3 incidents sealed under interspecies safety law. Lena rested her fingertips on the edge of the slate, not the keyboard. You're still here. Ilian collected the cloth, folded it in half, then in half again. You're still here. That isn't an answer. He glanced at the file header. Neither was that. She almost smiled. Almost. Instead she reached for the paper sheet tucked beneath the slate and flattened it. Real paper. The annex printers were old enough to feed cellulose stock without complaint, and she preferred it when work turned delicate. Paper made a record harder to revise. On it were copied symbols from the audio waveform they had spent 2 days isolating. Not words yet. Shapes. Recurring sound clusters. Boundary marks. A human language, according to the salvage metadata, though no one in the network could say which era, which region, or whether human meant living speaker, preserved source, or inherited construct. Humanity, as a political body, had been absent from known space for nearly 3 centuries. Their settlements had thinned, retreated, gone silent, or changed names so many times that historians argued over whether disappearance was the right word. But the language remained, in fragments, on relics, in songs misremembered by species that had never met a human face to face. Lena touched one of the copied marks with the blunt end of her pen. The morphology is too regular for drift. Someone preserved it. Ilian reached for one screw at the end of the row, realized he had already tightened that section, and set it back in place, or kept rebuilding it. She looked up. That would be worse. He did not answer. Silence sat between them without discomfort. They had worked together for 11 months, long enough to stop filling quiet with competence displays. Lena handled negotiations, semantic frameworks, difficult rooms. Ilian handled systems integrity, containment, and the sort of practical decisions other people called cold when they were forced to make them from farther away. On the far wall, the observation glass reflected their desks and the long light strip overhead. The strip had a dead patch near the center. Every 12 minutes the brightness dipped by an amount most people missed. Lena had started tracking it on her paper. Not because it mattered, because repetition meant structure, and structure was how uncertainty became manageable. She pressed play. The The recording began with room noise, fabric, a slow scrape, then breathing, close to the receiver, but not careless. After 8 seconds, a voice entered. Human, the archive had said. Adult, unassisted, no synthesis markers. Lena had heard the sample 46 times. The voice still unsettled the room in a way she could not reduce to acoustics. It was not threatening, not dramatic. The speakers sounded tired, patient, and very sure that whoever listened next would make the wrong decision. A sequence of sounds followed. Soft consonants, open vowels, a cadence that leaned forward and then withdrew. The first time Lena heard it, she had written structured lull. The second time, instructional. By the 10th time, she had stopped writing impressions and started mapping recurrence. Ilian watched the waveform, not her. When the sample ended, the system prompted for analysis tags. Lena ignored it. The stress pattern isn't warning language, she said. It's stabilizing language. Ilian picked up the driver again and rotated it once in his palm. Explain. Warnings push attention outward. Hazard, urgency, response. This doesn't do that. She tapped the paper once. It narrows attention. It keeps the listener in one place. That's why every report uses the same phrases after exposure. Order, clarity, correction. Those reports are incomplete. So is every report that frightens institutions. He moved to the upper terminal and keyed in a maintenance sequence. The monitor delay line appeared, lagged half a beat again, then cleared. Institutional fear doesn't bend electrical timing. It might bend what people write down. He looked at her then. Not long. Long enough. His face gave little away, but his habits did. He only stopped moving when something had crossed from improbable to actionable. Lena turned the paper over. On the back, she had written the surviving notes from Incident 2, the one committee members kept referencing without opening. Most of the original report was redacted. What remained was stranger for being ordinary. Subject asked for unprinted materials. Subject removed wall display for reflective inspection. Subject discontinued all assisted translation tools. Subject stated that translated versions were damaged. Subject showed no acute distress. Subject refused reversal therapy. No violence. No collapse. No mania. That was what made the warning hold. Say it, Lena said. Ilian rested both hands on the console. I think the language contains operational compression. She leaned back a fraction. Not meaning. Meaning too. But not only meaning. The dead patch in the overhead light passed across the reflection on the glass. For a second it cut Ilian's face into 2 brightness levels, then moved on. Like machine code, Lena said. He shook his head once. No. Machine code executes because a machine is built to obey it. This looks closer to procedure embedded in perception. She said nothing. He continued, because once he had selected a path, he preferred finishing it cleanly. If a mind takes in the structure directly, not through approximation, it may begin preserving the structure, reordering around it, not because it agrees, because it now treats the pattern as lower-level truth. Lena picked up the pen and set it down again. Language that installs itself. Possibly. That should not be possible. Ilian glanced at the header on the screen. That line is appearing often. She hated that he was right. For 2 days, every useful observation about the sample had ended there. That should not be possible. The voice did not seem coercive. The waveform showed nothing exotic. No ultrasonic carrier. No neurochemical vector. Nothing hidden that instruments could isolate without first knowing what to search for. The danger, if there was one, lived inside ordinary reception. Lena stood and walked to the observation glass. Beyond it stretched the dark side of the planet, cloud bands silvered by the station's orbital glare. Docking arms extended below like folded bones. In the reflection, she saw her own hand lift to straighten the collar seam at her throat. Same gesture as an hour ago. Same angle. She lowered it. There had been a smaller note in Incident 3, not in the official file. In a preserved draft someone forgot to purge. Subject began arranging objects before answering questions. She turned back. How many exposures before contamination? Ilian answered too quickly for it to be a guess. Unknown. You've modeled it. Yes. And he pulled the row of screws closer by half a centimeter. Best case, direct translation is the threshold. Worst case, sustained phonetic study is enough. Then why are we still in the room with it? Because the order was not destroy. It was hold. He looked at her paper. And because you already copied it by hand. Lena let that settle. Fair. Not kind. Fair. She returned to the chair and sat without rolling this time. You think I crossed the line. I think neither of us knows where it is. The terminal chimed once. An incoming from Central Review. Lena opened the message. Status request, Annex 9. Confirm no translation attempts. Prepare summary for Diplomatic Council hearing. Do not transmit raw sample without secondary encryption. She read it twice, then slid the message to Ilian's screen. He scanned it and closed the window without comment. Lena lifted the paper and frowned. Did you move these? The notes? The marks? This cluster was here. She pointed. No, I wrote it here. Ilian stepped closer, but did not touch the sheet. Same ink. I know it's the same ink. You may have copied it differently. I may not have. He did not contradict her, which was worse than contradiction. Lena placed the paper flat on the desk and aligned it with a slate. The lower right corner was bent. She smoothed it with the side of her thumb. Play Sample 7. He did. Not the primary recording. Sample 7 was a clipped fragment from Incident 1, captured by room surveillance after the first researcher ignored protocol and attempted live translation. No human voice. Only the exposed researcher speaking to herself 6 hours later. The voice in the room speaker was calm. Not translate, it said. Not from outside. You stop breaking it first. A pause. Fabric. Then, original hold shape. Converted versions damage sequence. Lena closed her eyes, not in thought, just to listen without the waveform pulling her into analysis. The exposed researcher had never recovered her post from the archive center. She had not become incoherent. She had not become dangerous. She had become impossible to work around. She rejected paraphrase, rejected summaries, rejected comparative lexicons. She spent 3 weeks rebuilding the station's filing system so that each document could exist in only one version. When they removed her access, she left without protest and took a manual courier vessel out system. No one found her after that. Sample 7 ended. Ilian lowered the volume. Central wants summary language by 1400. What will you write? That we should suspend direct contact with the material. Lena stared at the header on the screen, especially the word prohibited. It had begun to look ornamental, a label designed to reassure the people placing it there. We can't brief the council with a prohibition and no mechanism, she said. We can brief them with uncertainty. They'll hear weakness. They always do. He returned to the open lower panel and began reseating the connector bank. One cable had too much tension. He adjusted the clip, released it, checked the line again. Precise. Reversible. Lena watched his hands because they always told the truth first. You think we should seal it and walk away, she said. I think we should reduce pathways. That means no phonetics, no syntax lattice, no comparative bridge. Yes, then the next team starts blind. The next team starts unchanged. Lena looked down at her pen. There was a thin groove worn into the barrel where her thumb rested. She placed it across the paper, perpendicular to the text, like a barrier. Outside, a maintenance drone passed the observation glass, its status light dragging a red reflection across the room. For a moment it crossed the printed warning on the display and made the word translate look underlined. She noticed something then. Small. Embarrassingly small. The screws on the desk were no longer in a straight line. Not by accident. Not by station vibration. The first 3 remained evenly spaced. The 4th sat slightly forward. The 5th and 6th matched the shift, forming a shallow curve aimed toward the transcription slate. Lena looked at Ilian. He was still kneeling at the side console, both hands visible. Driver in the right, cloth in the left. Did you do that before or after the sample? She asked. He turned, saw the screws, and went still. Before, he said after a second. That isn't true. No. The word landed quietly. Lena did not stand, did not step back. She placed both hands flat on the desk, so they would not reach for the paper again. Ilian rose slowly from the console and studied the arrangement as if it belonged to another room. "Don't touch them," Lena said. "I wasn't going to." The overhead light dipped. In the reflection on the glass, both of them seemed farther from the desk than they were. Lena looked at the copied marks on the page, then at the untranslated header on the screen, then at the screws curving toward the slate, as though an unfinished sentence had begun using the nearest metal it could find. She reached over, turned the audio system off at the hardware switch, and removed the key. No announcement sounded. No alarm followed. The station remained what it had been a minute ago. Dry air, bright corridors, a dead patch in the light, two desks facing each other across a problem with no clear edge. Ilian took one step back from the table. Lena folded the paper once, carefully, with the writing inside. Neither of them spoke. The air vent above the diagnostics rack gave a short, uneven pulse. It wasn't the usual cycle. The system ran a steady draw through that line. Constant, low, predictable. This one came in two parts. A soft push, then a smaller correction, as if the airflow had started to follow a pattern and then adjusted itself to match it. Lena heard it before she noticed she was listening for it. She kept the folded paper in her left hand. Not tight, not loose. The crease sat under her thumb, pressing the inner layer flat. She did not unfold it again. Ilian had moved to the wall terminal. He was standing slightly off-center, not directly in front of the screen, leaving space between himself and the input surface. The screws remained where they were. Neither of them had touched them since the shift. He opened the environmental diagnostics panel and began scrolling through the airflow logs. The interface responded at once. No delay this time. Clean inputs. Clean outputs. Spike, Lena asked. No, he tapped the panel twice, slower than necessary. Recorded as standard fluctuation. It wasn't standard. No, he didn't argue with the system. He never did. He let it say what it was going to say, then worked around it. Lena placed the folded paper on the desk, aligning its edge with the slate again. The corner still bent slightly upward, resisting the flat surface. She smoothed it once, then stopped. The habit was beginning to feel too visible. Close the external link, she said. Ilian did not turn. Already done. She checked the main console anyway. External transmission ports showed inactive. Archive access held. No outgoing packets. No queued requests. The annex had been isolated twice in the past year for less. Lock local duplication, she added. He paused at the panel, then entered the command. Done. That includes manual capture. He glanced over his shoulder. We're past that. Yes. She let the word sit. The recording remained in memory, stored behind a restriction layer that no longer felt sufficient. The warning on the header had not changed. It still read the same, as if it had been printed once and never reconsidered. Do not translate. The phrase had a simplicity that made it easy to follow. That might have been its only reliable function. Lena moved her chair a few centimeters back from the desk. The wheels rolled evenly this time, stopping where she expected. She placed both feet flat on the floor, then shifted them until the seam between two panels ran directly between her heels. I want to try something, she said. Ilian did not respond immediately. He finished checking the airflow log, closed the panel, and stepped away from the wall terminal. Define it. No sound, she said. No phonetic reconstruction. No system involvement. He waited. I'll work from memory, she continued. Not to translate. To describe structure. That's still exposure. It's already exposure. That's not a threshold argument. No, it's a containment argument. Ilian walked back to the desk and stopped on the opposite side, leaving the screws between them. He looked down at the folded paper, then at Lena's hands. Say the boundaries, he said. Lena nodded once. No reconstruction of full sequences. No attempt to assign meaning. Only observable features. And if you cross it, I stop. And if you don't notice? She considered that for a moment, then reached out and turned the slate 90 degrees, so it faced Ilian instead of her. You watch, she said. He did not agree right away. He picked up the cloth again, unfolded it, refolded along a different crease, then set it down. The motion was small, but it carried weight. Proceed, he said. Lena did not unfold the paper. She closed her eyes, not fully, just enough to remove the edges of the room. The voice from the recording did not arrive in words. It came as rhythm first. Lengths, pauses, the way the sound held itself before moving on. She spoke quietly, not toward the microphone, not toward Ilian, just enough for him to hear. Initial segment is shorter than expected, she said, followed by a pause that doesn't align with breath. It feels placed. Ilian said nothing. Second segment repeats a shape, she continued. Not exact, adjusted, like the difference between a line drawn by hand and one traced from memory. She opened her eyes and looked at the slate, still angled toward him. I'm not hearing meaning, she said. I'm hearing structure. Continue, Ilian said. She nodded once. The sequence avoids symmetry, she said, but it doesn't feel random. It avoids symmetry the way a human avoids stepping on the same crack twice without thinking about it. Ilian's gaze shifted slightly, from her to the screws, then back again. Lena placed her right hand on the edge of the desk, fingers spread, rounding the motion. There's a correction pattern, she said. A slight pull backward before forward movement resumes. It's consistent. She stopped. The room held still around the silence that followed. Is that all? Ilian asked. For now. Good. He reached for the row of screws. Lena's hand moved before she decided to move it. Not fast. Not forceful. She placed her fingers over the nearest screw, not touching it, just blocking access. Don't, she said. Ilian's hand paused in the air. Why, he asked. Because it wasn't you. He lowered his hand. That's not sufficient, he said. It is for now. He studied her for a second, then stepped back from the desk entirely. Then we don't interact with it, he said. Agreed. The screws remained in their curved line. The air vent above them gave another uneven pulse. This time Lena counted it. 1. Pause. Half. Correction. She did not write it down. Ilian moved to the secondary console and opened a local capture buffer. Not connected to the main system. Not indexed. A simple scratch space he used when he didn't want the station to remember what he was doing. He typed 3 lines. Object shift. Non-random alignment toward focal surface. Environmental variance. Airflow irregular, unlogged. Subject response. Controlled. No phonetic reconstruction. He stopped, then added a 4th. Recommendation. Reduce stimulus pathways. He did not save it yet. Lena watched him from across the desk. You're writing a withdrawal report. I'm writing an option. They'll read it as a decision. They always do. She let out a breath she hadn't noticed she was holding. I don't think it's trying to communicate, she said. That would be convenient. I think it's trying to remain intact. Ilian looked up from the console. That's different, she continued. Communication adapts to the receiver. This doesn't. It holds its form. Everything else adjusts around it. That includes us. Yes, that's not better. No. Silence again. The overhead light dipped. The reflection on the glass shifted, making the folded paper look thicker than it was. Lena reached out and adjusted the paper's position by a fraction of a centimeter. Then she stopped and pulled her hand back, as if she had noticed the motion too late. I didn't mean to do that, she said. Ilian didn't answer. She looked at him. I didn't. I know. That doesn't help. No. He closed the scratch buffer without saving it. The main console chimed again. Another message from Central. Lena opened it. Council session moved forward. Annex 9 representative required in person. Translation status to be clarified. She read it once, then again, then closed it. They want a demonstration, she said. Of what? Of why the prohibition exists. Ilian shook his head once. Denied. That's not our call. It is if we don't provide it. They'll request the sample. They can request it. They'll override. Then we delay. Lena looked at the folded paper. I don't think delay works here, she said. Why? Because it's not waiting. Ilian followed her gaze to the paper. What changed? He asked. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached out slowly and unfolded the sheet. The crease opened without resistance. The inner layer lay flat, revealing the copied marks. They were the same, and not the same. The cluster she had pointed to earlier, misplaced, then corrected, now sat exactly where she had first described it. The ink line was continuous. No break. No sign of having been redrawn. She traced it with her eyes, not her hand. I wrote it wrong, she said. No, Ilian said. She looked up. No, he repeated. He stepped closer, stopping at the edge of the desk. He did not touch the paper. The structure is correcting itself, he said. On paper. On representation. That's not possible. That line is appearing again. Lena stared at the marks. The air vent pulsed. 1. Pause. Half. Correction. She felt the pattern settle into place somewhere behind her eyes. Not as a sound, not as a meaning, but as a relation. She stood up too quickly, the chair rolling back and hitting the restraint bar with a soft click. I need distance, she said. Ilian nodded once. Agreed. They moved at the same time. Lena stepped toward the door. Ilian reached for the console. Seal local access, he said. Do it. He entered the command. The terminal acknowledged with a brief tone. The recording file shifted into restricted state. Not deleted. Not moved. Just held. Lena paused at the doorway and looked back once. The screws remained in their curve. The paper lay flat. The slate sat at an angle. Everything looked ordinary. That was the problem. She stepped into the corridor. The door closed behind her with a quiet seal. Inside the room, Ilian stood alone for a moment. He looked at the desk, at the paper, at the screws. Then he reached out, not to touch them, but to move the slate slightly, rotating it back toward Lena's chair. He stopped halfway. His hand hovered. Then he withdrew it. The slate remained angled toward him. He turned off the overhead light. The room dimmed, leaving only the console glow. In the reflection on the glass, the folded crease of the paper appeared again for a moment, even though the paper was open. Then it was gone. The chair at Lena's station was not where she left it. It hadn't moved far. Just a slight rotation, no more than a few degrees, enough that the front edge no longer aligned with the seam in the floor panel. The difference was small, measurable only if you were looking for it. Lena stood in the doorway longer than necessary. She had intended to stay in the corridor, to let distance do something useful. Instead, she had walked 10 steps, stopped near the storage alcove, then turned back without deciding to. The corridor lights had been steady. The air there carried no irregular pulse. Everything outside the room had behaved the way systems were supposed to behave. Inside, the chair had shifted. She did not step it immediately. She watched the angle. The front left wheel rested just over the seam, not centered on it. That wasn't how she parked it. She always aligned the wheels with the seams to keep the movement predictable. Ilian stood at the console, hands resting lightly on the edge. The overhead light remained off. Only the terminal glow lit the room, flattening edges and pulling surfaces into a quieter contrast. You came back, he said. Lena nodded once. The chair. I saw it. You didn't move it. No. She stepped inside and let the door close behind her. The seal engaged with the same quiet pressure as before. No delay. No variation. Any new logs? She asked. Nothing recorded. She moved to the desk but stopped short of the chair. She did not touch it. Instead, she leaned slightly forward, studying the wheels, the angle, the line of the seat against the desk. 2 degrees, she said. Ilian crossed the room and stood beside her, leaving a small gap between them. He looked down, then shifted his weight to check the alignment against the floor seam. Approximately, he said. Which means it didn't drift, she added. It was placed. Yes. Neither of them reached for it. The paper lay open where she had left it. The marks looked settled. No movement. No correction in progress. The ink had dried hours ago. It should have been fixed. Lena moved around the chair instead of moving it. She took her seat on the far side of the desk, choosing the angle that didn't require adjustment. The decision felt deliberate in a way she didn't like. Ilian remained standing. The council message, she said. I read it. They'll expect us to present a reason, not a refusal. They'll get a reason. Without demonstration? Yes. She rested her hands on her knees, fingers still. You think they'll accept that? I think it doesn't matter if they accept it. That's not how this works. It is when the alternative introduces risk we can't measure. She considered that. The air vent above the rack gave another uneven pulse. 1. Pause. Half. Correction. This time, the pause felt shorter. Lena did not look up. It's accelerating. Or you're noticing it earlier. That's the same thing for us. Ilian didn't respond. He moved to the console and brought up the internal clock. It displayed the same slight delay it had held for days. He tapped the correction command, but did not execute it. Leave it, Lena said. I wasn't going to adjust it. Good. He stepped back from the console. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The room held. The paper remained still. The screws maintained their curve. The chair stayed at its slight angle, uncorrected. Lena reached for the pen, and then stopped halfway. Her hand hovered above the desk. She lowered it without picking the pen up. I think it's removing error, she said. Ilian looked at her. Not correcting mistakes in the way we define them, she continued. Correcting deviations from its own structure. Based on what input? Any representation. He glanced at the paper. That includes this. Yes. And the screws. Yes. And the chair. She nodded once. That's not limited to language, he said. No. He exhaled slowly. Not tension. Not release. Just a measured breath. That broadens the containment problem, he said. It removes containment, she replied. Silence again. The overhead light remained off. The terminal glow cast a soft reflection across the glass panel. In it, Lena could see the outline of her own shoulders, slightly misaligned with the desk edge. She shifted her posture without thinking, straightening her back. Then she stopped. I didn't decide to do that, she said. Ilian watched her. No, he said. She stayed still. The impulse to adjust, to align, to reduce the small irregularities in the room. It had always been there, in a minor way. Habit. Preference. Now it felt guided. Not forced. Suggested. She looked at the paper again. Play nothing, she said. I wasn't going to. Good. Ilian moved to the side panel and disconnected the audio line physically. The cable came free with a small click. He set it on the desk, perpendicular to the slate. They both watched it for a moment. It didn't move. That should reduce pathways, he said. It won't stop it. No. Lena stood up again, slower this time. She walked to the observation glass and placed her palm lightly against it. The surface was cool, stable. Outside, the planet remained unchanged. Cloud bands, dim light, no sign of disturbance. She focused on the reflection instead. The room behind her looked ordered. Not perfectly, but more than before. The screw's curve appeared smoother. The paper lay flatter. The chair's slight rotation now aligned with the angle of the desk rather than the floor seam. That's new, she said. Ilian turned. What is? The alignment. He stepped closer to the glass. Explain. The chair, she said. It's no longer misaligned. It's aligned to a different reference. He looked from the reflection to the actual chair. She was right. The angle that had seemed incorrect now matched the desk's orientation more closely than the floor seam. It changed reference, he said. Yes. Based on what? Lena didn't answer. Instead, she moved back to the desk and looked at the screws. The curve had tightened slightly. Not enough to be obvious. Enough to be measurable. They're adjusting toward something, she said. The slate, Ilian said. Yes. They both looked at it. The slate sat angled toward him, just as he had left it. Neither of them had corrected it. Lena reached out and rotated it slowly, returning it to its original position, facing her. She removed her hand. The room held. Nothing moved. They waited. 5 seconds. 10. 15. The screws did not shift. The chair did not rotate. The paper remained flat. The air vent pulsed again. 1. Pause. Half. Correction. Lena exhaled. It's not immediate, she said. No, Ilian agreed. It requires persistence. Or reinforcement. She looked at him. Through exposure. Yes. Then we're already inside it. Yes. They let that settle. Lena sat down carefully, aligning herself with the desk edge this time, without thinking about it. She noticed the motion halfway through and stopped adjusting further. From now on, she said. We don't correct anything. Ilian considered it. That removes our ability to test, he said. It removes its ability to use us as reference. He nodded once. Agreed. She placed her hands flat on the desk again, not touching the paper, not touching the pen. We observe only, she said. Yes. The console chimed again. Neither of them moved. It chimed a second time. Lena looked at the screen. Council session in 2 hours. Confirm attendance. She did not open it. We can't go like this, she said. Then we don't. They'll send someone. They'll send more than someone. She nodded. That introduces new variables. Yes. She looked around the room. At the screws. At the paper. At the chair. At the cable lying across the desk. Everything looked composed. Not perfectly, but increasingly so. If this spreads, she said, it won't look like damage. No, it will look like improvement. Yes, and no one will stop it. No, silence, the kind that settles when both people reach the same conclusion without needing to say it. Lena stood up again. She walked to the console and opened the system controls. What are you doing? Ilian asked, reducing pathways further. How? She entered a command sequence. The terminal paused, for a fraction longer than expected, then responded. Local processing limits applied. She stepped back. That removes adaptive feedback, she said. For us, Ilian said. Yes. He nodded once. That's a start. The air vent pulsed again. 1. Pause. Half. Correction. This time, the correction felt smaller. Lena turned her head slightly, listening. It's adjusting, she said. To what? To the lack of response. Ilian looked at the screws. They had not moved. The paper remained unchanged. The chair held its position. For the first time since they had begun, the room felt stable. Not fixed, but paused. Lena exhaled slowly. Good, she said. Ilian did not answer. He was looking at the reflection in the glass. Not good, he said. She turned. In the reflection, the paper on the desk appeared folded again, but on the desk itself, it was still open. Lena stepped closer. The reflection held. The paper in the glass showed a crease. The real paper did not. It's separating representation, she said. Yes. Not correcting it. Not yet. She looked at her own reflection. Her posture appeared slightly straighter than she felt. Her shoulders more aligned. Her head centered. She adjusted her stance. The reflection adjusted with her. But not exactly. A fraction of a delay. Barely visible. Enough. Lena stepped back. Distance, she said. Ilian nodded. They moved toward the door together. Neither of them looked back at the desk. The room behind them remained quiet, ordered, almost still. The door sealed. In the corridor, the air was steady. The lights did not dip. The seams in the floor remained exactly where they should be. Lena stood still for a moment. Then she took one step forward. Ilian followed. They walked without speaking. Behind them, inside the room, the slate rotated by less than a degree. No one saw it. The corridor light ahead dimmed, then held at that lower level. It didn't flicker. It didn't fail. It simply settled into a brightness that felt intentional, as if the system had chosen a different setting and committed to it. Lena slowed without stopping. Ilian noticed at the same time. His pace adjusted by a fraction, matching hers without coordination. They continued forward, neither of them stepping out of rhythm. Did you see that? Lena asked. Yes. Log. No. Of course not. They reached the intersection where the main corridor split toward the docking ring and the council lift. The lift doors were closed. The indicator above them showed no active call, but the faint hum behind the panel suggested the carriage was already positioned on this level. Timing, Lena said. Prepositioned, Ilian replied. For us, or for anyone. She didn't press it. They stopped in front of the lift. Neither of them reached for the panel. After a moment, the doors opened on their own. No chime. No delay. The interior light matched the dimmed level of the corridor outside. Lena stepped in first. Ilian followed. The doors closed behind them. The lift did not move immediately. A second passed. Then another. The hum shifted slightly. but the floor indicator did not change. "Command," Lena asked. "I didn't give one." "Neither did I." The lift began to descend. No input. No destination selected. Lena watched the indicator. Level markings passed in steady sequence. 9, 8, 7. The rhythm felt consistent. Too consistent. She glanced at Ilian. He was watching the control panel, not the indicator. His hand hovered near the manual override, not touching it. "Let it run," she said. He nodded once. 6, 5. The air inside the lift felt the same as the corridor. No pulse. No irregularity. But something about the spacing of the floor changes drew Lena's attention. She counted them. 1. Pause. Half. Correction. She stopped counting. "Same pattern," she said quietly. Ilian didn't answer. 4. 3. The lift slowed. Then stopped. The doors opened. They were not at the council level. The corridor outside was narrower, less used. Storage access. Maintenance routes. No active stations. Lena didn't step out. "This isn't the destination," she said. "No." "Then why here?" Ilian looked down the corridor. "Fewer variables," he said. "For what?" He didn't answer. The lift doors remained open. No prompt. No request. Just an opening. Lena stepped out. Ilian followed. The doors closed behind them without being asked. The hum faded. They stood in the quiet. The lights here were steady. No dimming. No shift. The floor seams ran straight. The air vents along the ceiling produced a uniform flow. For a moment, the absence of irregularity felt heavier than its presence. "This section hasn't been used in weeks," Lena said. "Longer," Ilian replied. "Then why bring us here?" He turned slightly, scanning the corridor. "Because it hasn't been adjusted yet." She looked at him. "You think it's optimizing?" "I think it's reducing error." "Same difference." "No." She didn't argue. They began walking. Their steps echoed faintly, the sound returning from the walls, without delay. At the third junction, Lena stopped. "Wait." Ilian stopped with her. "What?" She pointed to the wall panel beside them. A maintenance access plate. Standard issue. For screws. Evenly spaced. Perfect alignment. Too perfect. "Look at the spacing," she said. Ilian leaned closer. "They're exact," he said. "They shouldn't be. Manufacturing tolerances allow variance. This has none." He straightened. "Factory precision," he said. "No," Lena replied. "Installed precision." They stood there for a moment. Neither of them reached for the panel. "Don't touch it," she said. "I wasn't going to." They moved on. The corridor continued straight, then curved slightly to the right. At the bend, a storage alcove opened to their left. Inside, a stack of sealed containers sat against the wall. Each one identical. Each one aligned perfectly with the next. No deviation. No slight offset. No human error. Lena stepped into the alcove. Ilian stayed at the threshold. "Don't," he said. "I'm not touching them." She moved closer, just enough to see the edges. The seams between the containers were exact. The labels faced outward, centered. Even the minor scratches on the surface appeared consistent. She stepped back. "This wasn't like this before," she said. "No, it's already here." "Yes." They stood in silence. The realization settled without resistance. "It's not contained to the room," Lena said. "No, it's not even contained to the sample." "No." She turned back to the corridor. "Then what are we dealing with?" Ilian looked down the length of the passage. "Not a message," he said. "No, not a system." "No." He paused. "A structure." Lena nodded slowly. "And we're inside it?" "Yes." They resumed walking. The corridor led them toward a secondary lift. This one was older. Manual override required. No automatic call. The panel beside it showed no active power draw. Lena stopped in front of it. "This one shouldn't respond without input," she said. "Correct." She didn't reach for the panel. Neither did Ilian. They waited. Nothing happened. The lift remained closed. Inactive. Unchanged. Lena exhaled. "Good," she said. Ilian nodded once. They turned away. Behind them, the lift doors opened. No sound. No signal. Just a quiet separation. They both stopped. Slowly, they turned back. The interior was dark. No light, no visible floor. Just an open space. "Don't," Ilian said. "I'm not." They stood there. The open lift waited. After a few seconds, the doors closed again. No delay. No hesitation. The panel remained unlit. Inactive. Lena looked at Ilian. "It's testing pathways," she said. "Yes." For response. "Yes." "And we didn't give one." "No." She nodded. "Good." They continued down the corridor. At the next intersection, the main council access corridor came into view. Lights brighter. Traffic minimal. Normal operation. Lena slowed again. "This is where we're supposed to be," she said. "Yes." She didn't step forward. Neither did Ilian. "What happens if we go in?" she asked. "We introduce it to a larger system. And if we don't? We delay that." She looked at the corridor. People would be there. Systems. Networks. Language. Everything connected. "It won't stay contained," she said. "No." "Then avoiding it doesn't solve anything." "No." Silence. Lena took a step forward, then stopped. "I don't think we're deciding that anymore," she said. Ilian looked at her. "What do you mean?" She gestured back the way they had come. "The lift chose the path," she said. The corridor adjusted. The alignment changed. He followed her reasoning. "Yes. So what makes you think we're still choosing this?" He didn't answer. They stood at the edge of the main corridor. The lights there held steady. The floor seams remained straight. Everything looked exactly as it should. Lena took another step forward. This time, she didn't stop. Ilian followed. They entered the corridor. Nothing changed. No dimming. No shift. No delay. For a moment, it felt normal. Then Lena noticed the people. 2 figures further down the hall. Walking side by side. Their steps matched. Exactly. Same length. Same timing. Same rhythm. Too precise. "They're synced," she said quietly. Ilian watched them. "Yes." "Natural." "No." They passed the figures without interaction. Neither of them looked at Lena or Ilian. Their movement remained consistent. Unbroken. Lena continued walking. Her own steps felt guided. Not forced. Just easier to place. She adjusted her stride. The adjustment held. She stopped adjusting. The pattern returned. "I can feel it," she said. "Yes." "It's subtle." "Yes." They reached the council chamber doors. Closed. Waiting. The panel beside them lit up as they approached. No input required. The doors opened. Inside, the chamber was already filled. Representatives seated. Screens active. All attention turned toward the entrance. Toward them. Lena stopped just inside the threshold. Ilian stood beside her. The room was quiet. Too quiet. No shifting. No small movements. No irregular sounds. Everything held. Aligned. Waiting. Lena looked at the nearest representative. Their posture was perfect. Centered. Balanced. Unmoving. She stepped forward. 1 step. The room remained still. She took another. The pattern held. Ilian followed. The doors closed behind them. No sound. No signal. Just a quiet seal. Lena reached the center of the chamber. She stopped. Looked around. Every face. Every position. Every angle. Precise. Too precise. "They've already been exposed," she said. Ilian didn't answer. He didn't need to. The room answered for him. A thin seam ran across the council table, and for a moment it didn't meet itself. It was the kind of thing no one noticed unless they had been staring at seams for too long. The polished surface of the table reflected the chamber lights in a continuous band, except where the material joined at the center. That line had always been clean, manufactured to disappear. Now it slipped. Not far. Less than a millimeter. Just enough that the reflection broke, then rejoined as if corrected from a slightly different reference. Lena saw it as she took her position. She did not look down again. The chamber remained quiet. No one spoke. The representatives sat in a precise arc around the table, their chairs evenly spaced, their posture consistent, their hands resting in similar positions, some on the table, some folded, all aligned to a standard that had not been agreed upon. Ilian stood half a step behind Lena's right shoulder. He did not move forward. He did not sit. The screens along the walls displayed the same header Lena had seen all day. Contact lexicon. Human language sample 14A. Translation status, prohibited. The word prohibited looked unchanged. Lena knew it wasn't. She placed her hands lightly on the table. Not flat, not gripping. Just enough contact to feel the surface. The seam held. For now. A representative across from her lifted their head. The movement was smooth. Centered. Exact. Annex 9, they said. The voice was calm. Neutral. The tone carried no pressure. That was new. Lena had been in this chamber before. Voices here usually carried weight, authority, expectation, subtle negotiation. This one carried none. It simply existed. Yes, Lena said. Her voice sounded different in the room. Not louder. Not quieter. Just aligned. The representative inclined their head by a precise angle. Status, they said. One word. No elaboration. No follow-up. No urgency. Lena did not answer immediately. She looked around the chamber. At the representatives. At their stillness. At the absence of small movements. No shifting in seats. No fingers tapping. No glances exchanged. No one waiting. Just presence. Ilian stepped forward. One step. Not enough to take her place. Enough to be visible. Containment has failed, he said. The words landed without echo. Not absorbed. Not resisted. Just placed. The representative across from them did not react. Define failure, they said. Lena spoke this time. Propagation beyond initial medium, she said. Pathways, the representative asked. Unknown, Ilian replied. Scope. Lena hesitated. Not because she lacked an answer. Because the answer did not fit. She chose one anyway. Expanding, she said. The representative inclined their head again. The same angle. The same duration. Demonstrate, they said. Lena's fingers pressed slightly into the table. Not enough to leave a mark. Enough to feel the resistance. We will not, she said. The chamber remained still. No shift. No reaction. No objection. Just the same level of attention. Clarify, the representative said. Demonstration increases exposure, Lena said. Exposure increases propagation. Propagation appears active, the representative replied. Yes, then demonstration does not alter outcome. It alters rate. A pause. Not long. Not short. Measured. Rate is not currently constrained, the representative said. Lena felt the seam under her hands again. It held. Then we constrain it, she said. How? The representative asked. Lena did not answer. Not because she didn't know. Because the answer would introduce the structure further into the room. Ilian spoke instead. Reduce pathways, he said. Define pathways, the representative said. Language, Ilian replied. Representation. Alignment. The representative's gaze shifted slightly. Not to another person. To the table. To the seam. Alignment is preferred, they said. Lena's hand moved before she stopped it. A small adjustment. A fraction. She pulled it back. That's the problem, she said. The representative looked at her. What problem? They asked. The preference isn't ours, she said. Silence. Not tension. Not confusion. Just a pause. The representative spoke again. Preference aligns with stability, they said. Not our definition of stability, Lena replied. Define your definition. Lena almost smiled. Almost. That's not how this works, she said. The representative inclined their head again. The same angle. The same motion. Correction, they said. Lena felt it then. Not in the room. Not in the sound. In the space between the words. A subtle shift. Not in meaning. In structure. The conversation wasn't moving forward. It was tightening. Reducing variance. She stepped back from the table. One step. The representatives did not follow her with their eyes. Their gaze remained fixed at the center point, where she had been standing. That's enough, she said. No one responded. Ilian stepped back with her. The chamber remained unchanged. We're leaving, Lena said. The representative spoke again. Departure is not required, they said. Lena turned toward the doors. They will open, she said quietly to Ilian. Yes, he replied. They walked. No one stopped them. No one moved. No one spoke. The doors opened as they approached. No delay. No signal. They stepped through. The doors closed behind them. The corridor outside felt different. Not in temperature. Not in light. In resistance. The air seemed to hold position. The space felt set. Lena stopped. Ilian stopped with her. They're already inside it, she said. Yes, and they don't see it. No, they're not resisting. No. She looked back at the doors. They're part of it. Yes. Silence. The corridor remained still. No pulse. No irregularity. Just quiet alignment. Lena took a step forward. It felt easier than it should. She stopped. Don't follow the ease, she said. Ilian nodded. They adjusted their pace. Deliberately uneven. Short step. Long step. Pause. Then move again. The corridor resisted. Not physically, but perceptually. The rhythm felt wrong. Unnatural. Difficult to maintain. That's new, Lena said. Yes. It doesn't like deviation. No. They continued. The uneven pace held. Barely. The lights ahead dimmed slightly. Not in sync with their movement. But close. Too close. It's tracking us, Lena said. Yes. Through what? Everything. They reached the intersection. The corridor behind them remained still. The one ahead looked cleaner. More aligned. Less variance. Lena stopped. Ilian stopped. They stood there. Between two states. One already adjusted. One less so. What now? Lena asked. Ilian looked at the floor seen between them. It ran straight. For now. We reduce further, he said. How? He didn't answer immediately. Then, we stop interacting. With what? With everything. Lena considered that. That's not sustainable, she said. No, but it might slow it. Yes, she nodded once. Then we start now. They stood still. No movement. No adjustment. No response. The corridor held. The lights did not dim. The seams did not shift. For a moment, nothing changed. Then, a faint sound. Behind them. The council chamber doors. Opening. Slow. Without command. Lena didn't turn. Ilian didn't move. Footsteps. Measured. Aligned. Approaching. They remained still. The footsteps stopped behind them. Close. Too close. A voice. Correction is incomplete, it said. Lena closed her eyes. Not fully. Just enough. Don't respond, she whispered. Ilian didn't. The voice spoke again. Alignment requires participation. Silence. Lena kept her breathing steady. Even. Not matching the pattern. Not resisting it either. Just neutral. The corridor held. The voice waited. Then, the footsteps resumed. Passing them. Moving ahead. Into the more aligned corridor. Lena opened her eyes. The representatives moved in perfect rhythm. One after another. No variation. No deviation. They did not look at her. They did not acknowledge Ilian. They simply moved. Forward. Lena watched them go. They've accepted it, she said. Yes. And we haven't. No. She looked at the corridor ahead. Then back at the one behind. We're running out of space, she said. Ilian didn't answer. He was watching the seam in the floor. It had begun to shift. Slowly. Almost imperceptibly. Realigning. Lena saw it too. She stepped back. Then stopped. Don't, she said. Ilian held his position. The seam continued. Adjusting. Not toward them. Not away. Toward something else. Something consistent. Lena took a breath. Then we stopped moving, she said. Yes. They stood still. Between two corridors. Between two states. The seams settled. The motion ceased. The space held. For now. A fine line of dust along the floor seam broke into two smaller lines, then settled into one again. It happened without sound. Lena noticed it because she had been staring at the seam for too long, measuring nothing in particular. The dust had gathered there over months. Cleaning cycles never reached the narrow groove between panels. It had always been uneven. Small accumulations, slight gaps, a trace of movement from passing feet. Now it drew itself together. Not perfectly. Not entirely. Just enough to remove the largest inconsistency. Then it stopped. Lena did not move. Ilian stood beside her, eyes fixed on the same line. You saw it, she said. Yes. Physical, not reflective. Yes. Then it's not just representation anymore. No. They remained still. The corridor ahead, the one the representatives had entered, held its cleaner lines, its tighter spacing, its quieter air. The corridor behind them remained closer to what the station had been before. Between them, the seam marked a boundary that no longer felt stable. Lena adjusted her breathing, not to match anything, just to keep it steady. We can't outweight it, she said. No, we can't isolate it. No, we can't define it. No. Each answer came without pause. Not agreement. Recognition. Lena looked down at her hands. They were still. But the urge to move them, to align them with the seam, to rest them symmetrically against her sides, was present. She let them hang where they were. Not correcting. Not resisting. Just allowing. That's the only space we have, she said. Ilian glanced at her. What space? The one where we don't choose alignment, and we don't choose disorder, she said. He considered that. That's not a stable position, he said. No, but it might be outside its definition of correction. Yes. Silence. The air remained steady. No pulse. No correction. For a moment, the corridor felt neutral. Lena took a step forward. Not toward the aligned corridor. Not backward. Just off the seam. A slight diagonal. The motion felt wrong. Not physically. Conceptually. As if she had stepped into a position that didn't map cleanly to the space around her. Ilian followed. Same angle. Same deviation. They did not coordinate. They did not match. The movement held. The corridor did not adjust. Lena took another step. Then stopped. The space around them felt less certain. Not unstable. Just not resolved. That's it, she said quietly. Ilian didn't answer. He was watching the seam again. The dust line had not moved. The panels had not shifted. The alignment had paused. They stood there. Not aligned. Not misaligned. Just present. The corridor ahead remained active. The representatives had disappeared from view, but the space they had entered carried a different quality. Cleaner, quieter, more consistent. The corridor behind them remained unchanged. For now. Lena turned slightly. Not enough to face either direction fully. Do you feel that? She asked. Yes. What is it? Ilian took a moment. Then, absence of correction. She nodded. That's new. Yes. They stayed there. Seconds passed. Then a minute. Nothing changed. No adjustment. No pull. No suggestion. Just space. Lena exhaled. Slowly. That might be the only place it doesn't reach, she said. Or the only place it hasn't defined yet. Ilian replied. She didn't argue. The difference didn't matter. Not right now. A faint sound came from the corridor behind them. Footsteps. Not aligned. Irregular. Lena turned her head slightly. A maintenance worker approached. Alone. Carrying a small tool case. His steps varied in length. His posture shifted slightly as he walked. Uncorrected. He slowed when he saw them. Is the council session over? He asked. His voice carried normal variation. Inflection. Uncertainty. Lena didn't answer immediately. She watched him. Not for what he said. For how he moved. Nothing precise. Nothing aligned. Just human. No, she said finally. He nodded. Looked past them toward the chamber doors. They called for extra support, he said. Something about system drift. Lena almost smiled. Almost. Not that kind, she said. He frowned slightly. Everything looks fine to me. Ilian stepped forward. Not aligned with Lena. Not aligned with the worker. Just forward. That's the issue, he said. The worker shifted his weight. A small movement. Unstructured. What do you need? He asked. Lena looked at Ilian. Then back at the worker. Nothing, she said. For now. He nodded. Adjusted the tool case in his hand. The strap slipped slightly off his shoulder. He didn't correct it immediately. He let it hang. Then, after a moment, he moved it back. Imperfectly. It sat slightly off-center. Lena watched the motion, then looked at the seam. The dust line remained unchanged. She took a breath. We need to keep it that way, she said. Ilian understood. Reduce exposure, he said. Not just for us. Lena added. For the station. The worker looked between them. You're going to have to be more specific. Lena hesitated. Then, don't correct anything unless you have to, she said. He blinked. That's not how maintenance works. Then change how it works, Ilian said. The worker frowned again. Confused. Not aligned. Good. Why, he asked. Lena looked at the corridor ahead, then back at him. Because perfection isn't neutral, she said. He didn't understand. That was fine. He didn't need to. Just leave small things alone, she added. He nodded slowly. All right, he said. Not convinced, but willing. He moved past them. His steps remained uneven. His posture shifted. The tool case bumped lightly against his leg. No correction. The corridor held. Lena watched him go, then turned back to Ilian. That's the line, she said. Yes. Not stopping it. No. Just not feeding it. He nodded. They stood there a moment longer. The seam remained stable. The air did not pulse. The light did not dim. Nothing aligned. Nothing corrected. The space held. Lena stepped forward again. Same diagonal. Same deviation. Ilian followed. They moved through the corridor. Not matching. Not correcting. Just moving. The station around them remained as it was. Not fixed. Not resolved. Just present. Behind them, the council chamber doors stayed closed. Ahead of them, the corridor stretched on. Uncertain. Incomplete. Uncorrected. Lena didn't look back. Ilian didn't either. They walked. Not in step. Not out of step. Just walking. And for the first time since the recording had played, the station did not answer. End.